Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dear honorable guests, it is my great honor to welcome you to the International Maritime Forum Global Compass 2025, held here in Varna under the distinguished patronage of the President of the Republic of Bulgaria, the municipality of Varna, and the Nicola Vaptsarov Naval Academy. The theme of this year's forum, Beyond Horizons, Advancing Maritime Innovation, Safety and Responsibility, reminds us that the sea is not only a bridge of trade and progress, but also a space of shared responsibility and sustainable management. Today, more than ever, we are called to reflect not only to the challenges facing the maritime sector, but also on the opportunities for transformation through innovation, collaboration, and leadership. We are privileged to have with us today our distinguished speakers, each of whom brings unique expertise and perspectives to this conversation. Furthermore, we are honored to be joined by Captain Stanislav Stoyanov, Chairman of the Bulgarian Shipmasters Association, and we will also hear welcome addresses from Mr. Pavel Popov, Acting Mayor of Varna Municipality, and Vice Admiral Mitko Petev, Official Representative of the President of the Republic of Bulgaria. So, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Captain Stanislav Stoyanov, Chairman of the Bulgarian Shipmaster Association. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to our guests that they attend again our sea capital, city of Varna. And I want to say this, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board of International Maritime Forum Global Compass. Special greeting from our friends from Italy. Signore e signori, benvenuti a Forum Maritimo Internazionale Global Compass. And of course, special address to our friends from Barcelona in Spain. Signore y señores, bienvenidos a bordo del Forum Internazionale Maritime Global Compass. This is special greeting from our guest from Emirates. Of course, it will be very difficult to pronounce this. This is my special greeting. Okay. Again, I have the honor to welcome in the maritime capital of Bulgaria, city of Varna, a place that from the recent century are connected with shipping industry, with fishing, and with sea in general. The forum is organized, say Our Lady, it's organized by Bulgarian Shipmaster Association with the cooperation of Bulgarian Chamber of Shipping and Company Ship Possible. And of course, I want to say thank you again to all our sponsors and contributors. And thank you to our team, which consists from not only from the captains and engineers, from lawyers, event manager, and etc. Okay, what is briefly Global Compass? Global Compass is the platform for communication between business, education centers, government and non-government profit organization. The forum this year will be covered by leading TV and radio companies and distinguished media like Nautical Institute, Bloomberg TV, and etc. A new highlight this year I want to produce is appearance of innovation startups. This is they organized in C cluster, and I think that these young people with a young company will be very interesting for all of us. Okay, this year we have more than 100 participants in the forum. And we have a guest from United States to India, and I think that everything will be smoothly again. Okay, I wish you success with several fleet under the keel to the forum and to the guests. Thank you.
Okay, and now it is my honor to give the floor to Mr. Alexander Kalchev, Chairman of the Bulgarian Maritime Chamber.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's a big pleasure and I'm really honored to welcome all of you on behalf of the Bulgarian Chamber of Shipping to the fourth Global Compass Forum here in Varna. The Bulgarian Chamber of Shipping is the biggest Bulgarian non-profit organization representing over 80% of the active companies doing maritime business in Bulgaria. Our members are the biggest port operators from Port of Varna, Port of Burgas, all the active ship repair yards in Bulgaria, the biggest ship owners, as many of the shipping agencies and the companies rendering ship supply, as many others. We are also very proud to have among our members the major, I would say, the major maritime scientific and educational institutions from Bulgaria as well. Dear friends, the development of the maritime industry is the key priority of the Bulgarian country, especially in moments like, geopolitical situations like the one we have here in Black Sea, which is very complicated. Today, we actually don't know what a step we should take next in order to make the shipping more safer, more green, more sustainable. But in the same time, we're confident that all the topics, all the realistic goals we have put already in our agenda are to be achieved for sure. The Global Compass Forum positions Bulgaria and the city of Varna as an important center of maritime forums, business events, innovations in shipping, etc. We already becoming a very attractive destination for such kind of forums, which makes me really, I would say, excited. I'm convinced that this conference will be an efficient and constructive dialogue between the experts, between the professionals. And I believe that we have two fruitful days ahead where we will be able to exchange ideas and experience. The stakeholders here are representatives of the educational, the maritime law, the port and security sectors, as well as governmental and non-governmental organizations from Bulgaria and abroad. The theme of this event this year, as was already announced, is Beyond Horizon, expanding innovation, safety and responsibility in shipping, which actually covers almost all the fields of interest. And to me, it sounds very promising indeed. So I, using the opportunity to thank all the speakers who have the floor in this fourth event organized by the Bulgarian Shipmaster Association. And of course, to wish all the participants fruitful discussions in order to add some additional value to the common mission that we have. Wishing all of you good health and unceasing energy when trying to make the shipping and the maritime industry bit safer, and innovative one. Thank you very much for the attention.
Okay, and as next, it is my honor to give the floor to Mr. Pavel Popov, acting mayor of Varna municipality, for his welcome address. Please welcome.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates and guests, it's my great pleasure to warmly welcome you to the maritime capital of Bulgaria, Varna, and my great honor that we are once again the hosts of the prestigious International Maritime Forum Global Compass. Our city has always been open to the world through the sea, cultures, sciences, and innovation. Varna is not only a city with a rich history and cultural heritage, but also a key economic and logistic maritime center in the region. Undoubtedly, our port is among the most significant on the Black Sea, while the city continues to grow confidently as an important hub for transport, trade, shipbuilding, and maritime technologies. This very strategic position allows us to serve as a connecting link between Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. I'm delighted that today Varna once again brings together leading experts, researchers, business representatives, institutions, and visionaries to present and discuss the current challenges and prospects of the maritime industry and maritime policy, while also reflecting on the future of the blue economy, sustainable development, and innovations in the sector. I'm convinced that here in Varna, new ideas and partnerships will emerge, further strengthening our city's role as a global maritime center and as a catalyst for new investments. I believe that in your discussions at work, you will be guided by the commitment to protect the maritime environment worldwide and to make it a better place on our planet. I would like to thank the organizers for their efforts in turning Varna into a global stage for maritime ideas and innovations and into a crossroads of knowledge and business. I wish all participants fruitful work and discussions, new horizons of cooperation, and every success. As they say in your trade, fair winds and following seas.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Vice Admiral Mitko Petev, official representative of the President of the Republic of Bulgaria.
Good morning. I have the pleasure to deliver the address from the President of the Republic of Bulgaria, which currently is addressing everybody who is in the room and participating in this prominent event. Republic Bulgaria President, to the participants of the International Maritime Forum Global Compass, dear panelists, organizing staff, and participants, let me start with a very warm welcome to Bulgaria to all of you who choose to contribute to the International Maritime Forum Global Compass 2025. I have granted the presidential patronage to this forum for a second consecutive year with a thorough understanding of the crucial importance of the complex maritime business ecosystem for the development and the advance of the entire global society. I'm convinced that your interaction will generate a profound impact on all branches of the global blue economy. The need for actions in this matter is urgent, and any sound proposal is welcome. My gratitude goes towards the Bulgarian Shipmaster Association for their tireless and diligent work to organize such a high-level event that demonstrates the importance Bulgaria places to the secure, legal, and sustainable global use of the maritime commons. I applaud the proposed selection of the panels: maritime technologies, geopolitics and trade, port and terminals, and crew welfare and education. These themes are very well intertwined, and they provide a structural, holistic approach towards the challenges to the maritime business. At the same time, the people who work at sea and those who are affected by the maritime activities should be a focal point of our efforts in order to build a more just and prosperous world. The areas of your expertise is impressive. We are welcoming seafarers, academia, industrial leaders, policymakers, and experts in governing the maritime domain, a good precondition to build a valuable toolbox that arms us adequately in meeting the present and future challenges to the blue industry. I wish you a fruitful forum and an enjoyable stay in Bulgaria. 3rd of September, 2025. Rumen Radev, President of Republic of Bulgaria and Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces.
Thank you so much. Okay, so our first panel, Maritime Technology, is dedicated to the very innovations that are reshaping the industry. Artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, drone applications, cybersecurity, green shipping, and advanced materials. These are not only distant visions, but realities unfolding before us, and they demand bold action and collective effort. I am confident that today's panel will not only inspire us with visionary ideas, but also serve as a valuable opportunity for dialogue and networking. After each presentation, of course, there will be time for questions that the auditory can ask. So with that, let us begin our journey beyond horizons. It is now my honor to invite our first distinguished speaker, Mr. Nicholas Charlambaros, Project Officer for Maritime at the European Maritime Safety Agency, who will present the risk-based assessment tool for MAAS. Please welcome.
Okay. So, good morning, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually a privilege to be here in the International Maritime Forum, Global Compass. And before we dive, I would like to frame today's presentation with a simple idea. In global industry, we need a common compass for new technology. For these technologies, like MAS, that true north is safety. Therefore, we have to be consistent, transparent, and share across administration, yards, operators, and the technology providers. The tool I'm going to show you today, ARBAT, is the instrument that helps us to read that compass. The same way everywhere, and actually turning innovation into evidence, and evidence into trust. With that compass set here, I would like to start my presentation, and I will explain what the ARBAT is in the beginning. Then I will have a short introduction about how we come with this methodology. And then I will try to explain why it is important to have such a risk-based assessment tool for autonomous vessels. And finally, I will going to provide you a summary of this tool. So moving on, the main objective of ARBAT, as you can see in the slide, is risk assess whether increased or new ways of using automation and remote operation is as safe or safer as a conventional shipping. And we have to say here that ARBAT is only the one tool that actually does this risk assessment specifically tailored for MAS. I have to say here, this tool is already included in the draft MAS code that is also under development under the risk assessment chapter. This is a kind of a systematic function-oriented risk assessment developed based on inspiration coming from the aviation, the automotive industry, rail, and other also very important sectors. It is developed together with DNV through what we say a tender in EMSA. Moving on, as you see here, the maritime industry advances, and we are seeking, let's say, the shift from what we say conventional ship designs to more innovative designs, and in many cases, autonomous solutions. However, this innovation presents some challenges, and most of our current regulation, as we know them, SOLAS, MARPOL, COLREG, were actually developed for conventional ships with seafarers, human operators in control and on board. These two rules, which are prescriptive, do not account for system and configuration found in MAS. When designed, we cannot fully comply with prescriptive requirements, and we refer to it as an alternative and equivalent design. To be approved, this design must actually demonstrate that we have a kind of equivalent level of safety, but without, let's say, clear and predictable pathway, this process can be actually uncertain. With this tool, ARBAT, we're actually trying to close these gaps because it will help us to identify applicable regulation and actually apply some risk methodologies that are kind new for these vessels. Starting with the tool, I would like to go through the different parts that this tool contains. The first one is actually part one. This is the use of automation, where the user needs to kind of identify practically the ship type, the operating context, the different modes, going to be the supervising agents, and where actually humans are involved in these automated systems. Moving on, we have the part two, which is the hazard analysis. There we need to identify what are the unsafe conditions, what are the causal factors, and what are the worst case outcomes. And also, following that, we go to part three, where we need actually to mitigate our risk that is coming from the hazards. So it's there actually we start building the mitigation layers in order to prevent any harmful causes that will come from these systems. And finally, we have the risk evaluation and the risk control, where actually we need to assess each scenario, and where is there where actually we do a sensitivity test. And then, based on that, we need to report all this and identify what will be the control measures, and to see whether actually we fulfill the criteria, what we call alert, as low as reasonably practicable, and identify whether our new designs, let's say, actually meet the purpose and the context. Moving on, we'll say here the part one, describing the first part. This process begins actually with defining what is the vessel missions. This can actually represent the different operational goals. For example, we see here the ship missions may be, for example, safe and timely transfer of personnel to an offshore platform. Once the mission is actually defined, it is broken down to different operational phases. This may, for example, include maneuvering close to the platform, docking, or maybe anchoring at designated locations. To structure this, we use actually two-level breakdown, and it's actually what we call it as the mission phase. It's actually high-level stages where we need to define the departure, transient, and arrival. And then we have in more detail the operational phases that you can see here. So, to aid the process for the risk-based assessment tool, a mission tree like that has been actually tailored and constructed, and can be used as a starting point, and if needed, to use the description that you can see here in order to modify and further expand, in order, let's say, to include details with regards to the different operational contexts that we are wishing to apply for these ships. Now, along with the operational details provided and the concept of operation, we need here to understand that this is quite important. First, because it provides an insight into the severity of potential accident scenarios. And secondly, because it helps us actually qualify the different mitigation measures that will be effective in actually preventing the unsafe conditions. Next, we identified what is called the automated and remote control functions that actually support these goals. For example, automated systems, as we know them, they may actually handled by a navigation system, but also we need to understand that could be also a human operator behind these systems. So all this needs actually to be included in our risk model. Then from this, let's say tree, we need to kind of identify what are the different functions. Here you see some of these functions that can be related and maybe automated with the vessel operation. To aid the generic function tree, we can actually further include more functions in order, let's say, to complete and be sure that we have go into detail, but not too much into detail, because we may end up with infinity, let's say, solutions, and this is something we are trying to avoid. Then what we do is provide this kind of map interaction between the different systems, and then it's important where to understand the different roles of the system and how actually they work together, and what are the control actions that should be included. This actually include from auxiliary systems, situational awareness softwares, and actually we have to ensure that there is a safe operation on that part. So with the tool, we have to say we are focusing on assessing this risk that are coming from this map here. So each one of these functions actually needs to be identified, scrutinized, and we need to go into the detail of finding what actually can fail and what are also the interactions between the system that can actually fail. Moving, we can see here actually to perform the hazard analysis. It is important here, as we said, to identify all the risk and the situation and conditions that are can compromise actually safety. And then secondly, we have to analyze each one of the functions and control actions. I don't want to go into detail what is function and what is control action, but it's something that needs to be taken into consideration what we have to know in order to proceed with this assessment. Moving on, this is actually the part of the hazard analysis where we see when to identify what are the unsafe conditions and modes for each of these function and control action. And to do this, we use, let's say, this structure guide works. For example, an unwanted command during a docking could lead to a collision, or, for example, not provided missing navigation data may also result to a loss of situational awareness. Or in case we have, let's say, fault sensors, this reading may cause incorrect course adjustments. These guide works can actually pinpoint where and how the system could operate outside the, what we say, intended safety envelope. Then it is also important to identify here the different failures. In ARBAT, we have 6 failures that have been identified. The first one is called the random hardware failure, mainly that is linked with physical properties and components. The second one is the systematic failures. Third one is systemic failures. And then we have the operator failures and failures that can also caused by environmental conditions, and failures that are quite common in these days, especially for this technology, which is deliberate actions. And this is something actually that is very important and is trying to be considered in mass. Then moving fast, we see here in addition, we need to analyze also some unsafe conditions. And we have to actually identify here what is to assess actually the exposure of this mass in different environments. For example, if this exposure is quite high, for example, if there is any speed limitation or anything else that is related in these areas, then the system actually can include them and identify the severeness of these problems. And here we're talking about the severity. Finally, after we describe the worst case outcomes for the different hazards we can see here, for instance, like loss of steering in shallow waters combined with speed restriction, this might lead to grounding with moderate impact. And therefore, here we actually do a prioritization of this severity. Moving fast into part 3, what we can see here is practically the first one is the FDIR, is what is actually should be considered when we do the risk assessment, is the fault detection, isolation and recovery of the system. So some of the systems that are designed for mass already include predefined fault detection elements that actually try to isolate and then recover the systems. Then the next step is to find a way to add the different mitigation levels. So there is a possibility to go up to 4 level mitigations in ARBAT. However, in our industry, let's say, up to 2nd level of mitigation for what we have now is sufficient. But again, this will actually depend on the level of detail that we want to go and how deep we want to go into analyzing the different functions for these systems. Also, what we need is who is going to be the supervisory role. So who is going to be there in order to activate these mitigations. It could be from AI systems. It could be up to active supervisors that could be on board, like seafarers, or persons that will be on what we call a ROC, an operation center. Or it could be even a passive supervision where the operator is available but does not actively monitor the system, but it can respond when there is actually an alarm. And then we need actually to be sure that this mitigation must remain functional after any unsafe condition has occurred, and they should be independent. So the mitigation measure must not depend on any agent that has already failed. And then we need also to ensure that these systems are actually robust and there is also independent, and there is always a human, let's say, that is involved in these mitigations levels. And this slide actually shows us, it's the final outcome, let's say. It's the part 4, where we actually need to see where the effectiveness lies and the risk mitigation that we actually defined, and whether, let's say, we're lying to the low or up to the medium. And if not, then we have to go back and think about new design and maybe even new mitigation measures. concluding my presentation, I would like, let's say, to highlight some of the findings that we use for this risk-based assessment tool. As we said, it is a function-based approach. It is quite novel in management of the risk. There is always a human integration that is been required. The good thing is that we don't need much of historical data in order to perform this risk assessment. There is a way actually to easily include what will be the fallback states and functions, and actually to clearly identify them. Then we need to actually include the mitigation evaluation here, and to see, let's say, the critical system identification. And of course, after we complete that, we know that at least when we finish the work, that somebody else can actually track what we have done and be able to correct it. That's why it is good for having that in order to share information with the different stakeholders. And I conclude here my presentation with having here, let's say, you can actually scan that, and you can see actually this video with regards to exactly this, how this methodology actually works. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tzirolamos, for this great presentation. So please, if are there any questions on this topic? Perhaps someone from the auditorium ask. Yeah, please. Do you need a microphone?
I'll try to speak louder.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
First of all, congratulations for this presentation. I just have a question around the. You mentioned in your presentation that some of the systems will use AI to coordinate at least the first stage of the mitigation. But they also say that there is no need of historical data. But you definitely need data to train the machine learning and the AI on top of that. So are you considering, you have those data from black boxes, or you're considering to use synthetic data for that? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for this excellent question. Actually, yes, at this model, it's what we say, it's a empty box. So practically, you're right, there is a need of data, but so far the problem that we have is that all these data are not available under the new MAS project, because still there is quite some projects that are, let's say, not finalized yet. We know them. We can use some of this existing technology and put them here in this risk assessment tool. But the aim is not to go into details of how the AI works. The thing is here, what would be the problem if the AI model does not work? It's there where we try to identify the system. As you understand, the possibilities of identifying a risk with regards to the AI can go to infinity. And it's there where actually we need also universities and people that are actually doing this work to support, let's say, with this data.
Just a question. You can always use synthetic data, but then the data needs to be modeled.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more question. Actually, the microphone is necessary because we are online streaming right now in order for our online guests.
Καλημέρα σας κύριε Χαραλάμπε, μ' ακούτε? Right, so I'm coming from a different world. We only see the part when everything fails. That's where PNI correspondents are needed. But I was interested in the structure where you say medium, low, severe consequences, and it's graded, which is a monumental undertaking. Just for that, heads off, for the monumental undertaking. How do you qualify what is low, what's medium, and what's severe?
Very good question. It doesn't depend on us.
Somebody else does then.
It's up to the designer actually to specify that. We had a lot of conversation about that. We wanted even to practically define that in the system. It was impossible. Everybody was disagreeing. The problem of disagreement is cost. Meaning, we need to kind of have new mitigation measures, compiling and increase them up, and that, as you can see, can go even more than 4, as I presented here. So that means that if we start going on that direction, then definitely we need to have in mind the cost, and we need to understand also from the part of what IMO is doing. IMO has this ALARP, as low as reasonably practical. It comes through FSA studies. We cannot do that here. So it's up, let's say,
too monumental.
Let's say to kind of quantify this.
I was making a parallel as you were speaking, because that's probably one of the trickiest parts there. That, say in insurance, this is where I'm coming from, so this is the only parallel I can make, but I can still see a logic there. In the older days, when there was a lot of steel exported from Europe, whether it be Romania, Bulgaria, part of Turkey, some in Greece, you would have these booklets issued by the P&I club associations to make sure that they unify the comments between various surveyors and what they would see as severely rusted and partly rusty and just rust stained. So this is a way of to put in some uniformity in place. And then you've got the P&I condition surveys, where the surveyor will have to judge the risk as to whether there is an imminent problem with the ship, more or less same logic. And then, given that the insurers saw what the difference is between the surveyors around the world, and maybe someone in Norway is going to call a condition fair, and in Africa that would be near excellent. So how do we judge? But you don't have an answer on that, huh? The answer is still out there. Time for me to hand out the mic then. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you so much for your question. Are there any other questions to our speaker? No? Thank you then. Thank you so much. Okay, so now please join me in welcoming our next esteemed guest, Mr. Simon Bennett, Deputy Secretary General of the International Chamber of Shipping, who will address the IMO. Welcome.
Well, good morning. Really, thank you very much for the invitation. It's wonderful to be back in Varna for a second time. Until last year, I'd never been to Bulgaria, and I enjoyed it so much that I really felt I had to come back a second time. If I look worried, it's because since the last time I went to Varna, I seem to have lost lots of weight, so I'm a bit worried about my trousers staying up while I speak to you. This is actually a really serious topic, so I'm going to talk about the new IMO net zero framework that you've probably read about in the Maritime press. If you're not familiar with the International Chamber of Shipping, ICS, we're the principal global trade association for ship owners. So our members comprise the world's national ship owners associations, and we hope very much in due course that the Bulgarian Ship Owners Association might be able to join ICS. But in simple terms, we've been heavily involved in the negotiations at the IMO on greenhouse gas reduction for the last 15 years. So this IMO net zero framework, it's a whole new chapter of the Annex 6 of the Marpol Convention. And I really can't emphasise enough what a radical package this new regulations is, and it's going to have truly profound implications on the entire structure of the industry and the fuels which we use for many decades to come. These draft Marpol amendments, they were approved in March this year, and they're scheduled for formal adoption at a special NEPC meeting in October. And if it goes through, they will enter into force globally in March 2027. Also, I can't emphasize just how complex these new regulations are. This whole deal is both politically and technically complicated. But in simple terms, there's a technical element. So we have a new GHG fuel standard to reduce the GHG intensity of marine fuels, or GFI. And then most lastly, we have an economic element. So there will be a global maritime emissions pricing mechanism, the purpose of which is to reduce the cost gap between these very expensive new zero and near zero GHG fuels, ZNZ fuels. The purpose being to incentivize the accelerated production and uptake of these new fuels. It really is a remarkable political achievement when we consider the geopolitical circumstances for the working at the moment, which we're going to be talking about later on. You have to remember this is a political compromise between over 100 states, but at the moment,
shouting loud enough. Yeah, why not do that? Yeah, I'll be like a pop star. So this agreement, it is at the moment, it is supported by most of the world's major economies. So that includes China, India, Brazil, and of course the EU. Now, again, the amounts of money involved are quite staggering, but tens of billions of dollars are going to be generated every year for a new IMO fund with rewards to ships which use these new ZNZ fuels. And potentially there will also be massive support for the decarbonisation efforts, the maritime decarbonisation efforts of developing countries. But again, the regulations are very complicated. Many parts of this framework, they're not yet complete. And at the moment, the quantum, the number, the amount of these rewards to ship owners for using ZNZ fuels and how they're going to be calculated, that's not yet been decided. And at the moment, it's actually very hard to work out what the unintended consequences of these regulations are going to be, and whether it's really going to be sufficient to kickstart the use and the investment in ZNZ fuels. So to give you a quick overview, as I said, in effect now, IMO has established a global carbon price for shipping. And this is the first time this has ever been done for a single industrial sector. So ships will pay GHG emission pricing contributions. And it's very radical. They pay this directly to an IMO fund. The money is not collected via governments. Importantly, and it's very important to ship owners, this is not an emissions trading system like we have in the EU. But as I keep saying, the regulations are very complicated. So ships will have to pay penalties, or they call them remedial units, and this is for under-compliance with a very complicated two-tier standard for the GHG fuel intensity. And then the required GHG fuel intensity of a ship, that will be averaged over a calendar year, but it will be very aggressively reduced on an annual basis, the GFI that has to be required by the ships. At the moment, numbers have been agreed for GFI reduction up until 2035, but then in the future, if we're serious about net zero, we expect IMO to adopt really aggressive reductions for the years ahead. Some other key features, I hope this isn't too much detail, but it's all important. These penalties for non-compliance with the GHG fuel intensity, they're calculated on what they call a well-to-wake basis. So that means taking account of the upstream emissions, not just the emissions from the ship itself. But at the moment, most of the GHG conversion numbers have not yet been agreed. And to make it even more complicated, you can have pooled compliance between ships and different companies. So ships which over-comply with the fuel standard, they can receive so-called surplus units, which they can then exchange with other ships which under-comply. Or they can bank them actually for up to 2 years so that they can use them in the future if they under-comply when the fuel standard becomes more aggressive. As I said, ships that use the zero emission fuels and potentially technologies such as carbon capture, the regulations say they will receive rewards from the IMO fund. But as I've said, at the moment, none of the details have actually been agreed. And that creates a major uncertainty for shipping companies and energy producers who urgently need to make investment decisions. And then, as I said, there's going to be billions of dollars generated for this IMO fund, potentially to help developing countries. Yeah, this is probably an inappropriate picture, but this was something that was going around at the very end of the negotiations. So if any of you are involved in Fuel EU Maritime, you'll know what we're talking about. Pass over that one. Let's talk about the numbers. So the core of the measure is this very complicated two-tier pricing mechanism. And to repeat, these required GFI reductions, they will become aggressively more stringent each year. But they relate to a baseline, and this is just a political number really, but it's an estimate of what the well-to-wake emissions of fuels were in 2008. So 93 grams per tonne of CO2 equivalent per megajoule of energy generated. But in simple terms, there are two tiers. So ships which under-comply with so-called tier 1, they will have to purchase remedial units at a cost equivalent to $100 per tonne of GHG emitted due to under-compliance with the fuel standard. Whereas ships which under-comply with tier 2, which will be virtually all ships which use conventional fuel, they're going to have to buy these units at $380 a tonne of CO2. So it is quite complicated. However, it is actually possible to calculate approximately the costs to ship owners per tonne of fuel. These are rounded numbers, but when this all starts, so based on fuel consumed in 2028, a ship using very low sulfur fuel oil will have to pay equivalent of about $140 a tonne of fuel. Well, that will rapidly increase to about $200 in 2030, going up to $500 in 2035. So I'm not a fuels expert, but the cost of fuel today, it's what, $600. So we're approximately talking a doubling of fuel costs. For diesel, gas oil, the costs are initially slightly lower because it has a lower GHG intensity. Because with the very low sulfur fuel oil, because we're taking account of the upstream emissions, lots of energy is produced in extracting the sulfur. But by 2035, it's approximately the same cost. At the moment, LNG, initially the penalty will be low, but that penalty also increases. And given the higher costs of LNG, I think operators which are investing in LNG are somewhat disappointed by these numbers because the long-term viability of LNG, these numbers indicate that it's probably not going to be a long-term economic solution. yeah, and these prices, although they've been fixed, the prices of these remedial units have been fixed up until 2030. There will then be a review, and we would anticipate the costs will then increase further. So they could exceed $500 a tonne by 2035. But again, these are only estimates because some parts of the package are incomplete. We don't know how these surplus units, how that mechanism is going to work exactly. So just at the moment, IMO hasn't agreed all the GHG conversion numbers for the upstream emissions. There's a whole very complicated process going on at IMO about life cycle analysis, where there's all these experts in sustainability meeting to try and work out these factors. And unfortunately, they're probably not going to be agreed until 2026 or even 2027. But these LCA guidelines, they're really vital, in particular, to understand how biofuel blends and also LNG, whether they're going to be economically viable compliance options. But at the moment, subject to what's decided, it does look like that biofuel blends could be a very attractive compliance option. But at the moment, that means there's big questions, because if biofuel's very attractive, what are the implications for encouraging the uptake of the other ZNZs like green methanol, ammonia, synthetic LNG and so forth, which everyone agrees are going to be needed by the industry if we're serious about meeting net zero by 2050. Then the big question, how much money is going to be generated by this IMO fund? The EU, interestingly, they're kind of saying, oh, it's going to, I say inverted commas, only about 10 billion a year. Our estimates are actually much higher than that, and we think so I've updated these figures recently, but in the very first year, we think about $25 billion will be generated by the fund, and that could actually potentially increase to as much as $100 billion in a year by 2035. And just to put that into context, I had a quick look on the internet, and the World Bank last year, this is the World Bank, inverted commas, they only spent 43 billion last year on climate change projects. So actually, this is what the representative from Saudi Arabia was saying, but he was saying that IMO is essentially setting up a World Bank inside the IMO. This IMO net zero framework is an incredible political achievement, but in the industry, in the real industry, for those ship owners who've not been involved in the negotiations, there are lots of serious concerns. But there are lots of moving parts. It's still very complicated. ICS, we've been advocating for a simple fuel levy per tonne of CO2. We didn't achieve that, but in a very complicated way, we have ended up with a global price for ship emissions, which is our goal, because we were trying to discourage a proliferation of unilateral regulations. So we've got problems not just with the EU ETS, but California or African states. And we have this chaotic mess of different carbon charging regulations. At the moment, we do expect the package to be adopted by the member states, this big meeting in October. However, we can't take that for granted. You've probably read that Donald Trump has become aware of this proposal, and he says it's absolutely outrageous. This is an attack on the United States. It's a global carbon tax. We had a meeting with the State Department, and they're saying, why is ICS supporting the carbon cult, is what they called it. But this is relevant to your next session. But the US, you have to understand that they're very intelligent people, and they are so from their perspective, to promote their interests, what they're doing now is they're I can use the word, they're threatening other member states, because they say, if you support this IMO deal, then we will make this, we will link this to the separate negotiations on trade and tariffs. So we don't know exactly how that's going to play out, and that's partly why I'm unfortunate I couldn't stay longer this week, because I have to go to Washington at the weekend, where we've got meetings with the State Department. Anyway, the compliance costs for ships, they are going to be expensive, but at least we have them, for the most part, they are fixed and we have some kind of certainty. But the rewards element, very important, that's still to be finalised. So we had our annual meeting recently in Athens. And so you can understand that the shipping industry had a huge debate about this, and we decided that we will support this IMO framework because on balance it's the only deal that's on the table, and we have to prevent the chaos of unilateral action. But also, and I'm not saying this lightly, if this deal doesn't go through, it will be a real blow to the authority of IMO as our global regulator. And again, it's your session this afternoon, next session. But one of the big issues at the moment, of course, is the movement away from a rules-based global order. So if IMO loses control of environmental regulation, then it's probably going to lose control of shipping regulation in the longer term. But as I said, there's big concerns in the real industry, and real ship owners, when they read these IMO regulations, they say, what is this? So our challenge at the moment is to communicate to the wider shipping industry the reasons why, as ICS and our national associations, why we are supporting this IMO net zero framework, despite the huge complexity and compliance costs. And we've recently made submission, going in this week, a big submission about prioritising the adoption of guidelines on how rewards are going to be calculated. So we've got to the end. I hope that wasn't too confusing and you learned something. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I can feel that they're going to have some questions. We're going to have some questions here. Thank you. Let's do it this way.
I'm Peter Georgiev from Technical University of Varna. Thank you very much for informative presentation. You mentioned that there is a risk of double charging according IMO framework and existing Fuel EU regulation. Probably in October this framework will be adopted. And what is your opinion about possible harmonization between Fuel EU regulations and IMO framework?
This is Chatham House rules, as we say. So, I mean, what we haven't got. We can't. There's such a huge topic. I couldn't cover everything, but we've just recently made a big submission to the European Commission, explaining to them that if the IMO framework is adopted, in our view, they have to replace the EU regulation applying the ETS to shipping with the MARPOL, the new MARPOL text. In fairness to the European Commission, and we have the EMSA representative here. I know you're not the Commission, but you're a EU representative. At the moment, they can't take a view on this because this is still a draft MARPOL text. It's not been adopted yet. Cynically, the issue is not so much with the European Commission, it's with the individual EU member states, because the way the EU ETS works, you may probably know, is that the money is paid directly to individual EU member states, and they have a formula. Basically, it's based on port calls as to how much money they collect. So there are certain governments which actually potentially stand to collect quite a lot of money from international ship owners into the EU ETS. So are they going to, I mean, I'm sounding very libertarian here, but once the government implements tax, it's very often very difficult for it to be persuaded to go back again. But taking the EU at its word, I mean, the European Commission was committed to global decarbonisation. And if you're serious about that, and that they do support the IMO framework. So that's something we'll have to work on next year. But the first hurdle is to get through adoption at IMO in October.
Simon, when you say ICS makes a submission to the EU Commission, how does that submission look like? Is it an email? Is it a post letter? Is it a discussion face-to-face, a roundtable?
No, it's again, I don't want to bore you with. It's our world is regulations and bureaucracy, but So there's a formal European Commission consultation going on at the moment, not about shipping, it's about the whole future of the EU ETS. So we submitted some very detailed comments to that consultation. But really that's just to soften the ground so that we can then go in hard next year as a global industry, saying that if we have the IMO framework, then the EU really has to get rid of the... Also, how we do lobbying. It's how long do we have? I mean, it's a combination of formal submissions and then meetings with the Commission themselves, and then events like this where we're communicating with each other. But the whole point is of diplomacy is that everybody understands each other's views and what landing grounds are. But yeah.
Thank you so much.
Georgi Dimitrov from Nikolai Vaptsarov Naval Academy. How appropriate, how suitable is this IMO framework to the Eastern European ports? And having in mind the volume of traffic, having in mind the market, the shipping in the area.
God, that's a real academic question, isn't it?
Thank you.
God, that's complicated. We'll go back a step, and we know it's interesting with the EU ETS. We know they're one of the most vociferous, most strong opponents of the EU ETS has actually been the Mediterranean port community, because they realise that they're put at a competitive disadvantage with North African ports. So I would argue, doing my job, that this is beneficial because you will have a global framework where everyone will be subject to the same charges. So there'll be no advantage of calling it Istanbul rather than calling it Varna. But that's a top of my head answer, and it's much more complicated than that. Someone at the...
Hi, Simon. This is Captain Karan here. I'm from Maritime Solutions based in London. Regarding the Fund and Reward award program that ICS have adopted, I think the biggest challenge for you guys is to try and get developing countries to adopt and agree to this whole program. I mean, what real strategies does ICS have in place to assist and help developing countries to kind of move with this program?
To be clear, it's IMO that have adopted this agreement. We're just the industry that are involved in the IMO negotiations. But that's a good question. But actually, again, it's a very complex design. So I try to explain. Potentially from this fund, there'll be vast amounts of money available to support developing countries, and I think increasingly, particularly the smaller developing countries, recognise that potentially they could benefit from this. So at the moment, we expect not all, but many developing countries to support this agreement. But their primary interest, it's not decarbonisation; it's how much money they're going to get in with it. And unfortunately, I haven't got time to talk at length. The whole problem with this process is that it's not like any IMO negotiation we've ever been involved with, because most of the officials at IMO on this topic, they're not transport or shipping officials, they're climate change negotiators. So the whole thing it's all relates to UNFCCC politics and that kind of thing. But the simple answer is, on balance, at the moment, unless President Trump has his way, which he could do, we expect the agreement to go through.
A question from my side. I'm Alexander Kauchev, the chairman of the Bulgarian Ship Owners Association, also. And my question is related to the fact that at this very moment, the shipbuilding industry is quite busy, and there is no chance, for example, if you decide today to place an order for a new ship, she will come, let's say, in 2030. So how efficient do you believe this framework is, provided that the owners cannot, first of all, they don't have firm technologies that can be used in order to get the carbon emissions close to zero at this very moment. So the industry is absolutely not ready for this. But also there is no place where you can order a ship and respectively comply with the requirements that IMO is trying to impose at this very moment. For me, from my point of view, implementing these regulations now is kind of fine. That definitely the ship owners and the operators are not deserving.
No, I would agree, and this is the whole net zero. It's an aspirational goal that's been decided by the politicians, and of course Europe, EU is committed to net zero. But in fairness, so are the Chinese, or Chinese committed to net zero by or close to 2050. With the shipbuilding, you're right, but of course it's an incremental process. So you'll read every day in the press how some of the big container lines are ordering ships now, which are in theory ready to use fuels like ammonia. It's more about the fuels, actually. It's a very simplistic answer, but it's more about the fuels than the ships themselves. Obviously, the ships have to be constructed so that they can operate with the new fuels. But the technical challenge, it's not really a technical challenge. We have safety issues, of course, with ammonia and methanol. But the real challenge, actually, it's the lack of availability of these new fuels, because of there's methanol and ammonia available in the world, but it's not green ammonia. It's not green methanol. So at the moment, those fuels will still be penalised under this IMO regime. And I'm not an expert on the conditions and shipbuilding conditions in Eastern Europe, but of course the reality is 90% of the international fleet is built today just in 3 countries: Korea, Japan, China. And again, Chatham House rules. The question people are asking is, this is what I'm not agreeing with President Trump, but what President Trump is saying, when you analyse this agreement, you can see why China is very pleased with this agreement, because in essence, this is going to hand over control of maritime fuel production to China, because they're the only ones who will be able to produce the new fuels at the scale that's going to be required if we're taking these net zero targets seriously. But yeah, so that sounds like a politician's answer, but it's
Sorry
quite
for interrupting, but Mr. Trump sounds a bit more reasonable in comparison with the other politics at this very moment, because I'm not agree with you. The technical issue is pretty big as well, not only the fuel. So the industry, the shipbuilding is not ready to face all these goals that were placed by the politics these days, unfortunately. And we as industry, people, we shall try our best to explain to the politics that need to lead themselves in a way that is reasonable and that will facilitate actually the process of making the shipping green, because all this extra burden at the end of the day will be paid by the citizens, by the competitiveness of the companies that are trying to export their goods over the world, etc. So from my point of view, we shall try to make this. Thank you.
I I don't disagree with you. However, and I was discussing this with someone last night. The problem we have in the shipping industry is that although we're a very large industry, in most countries, we don't have a strong political constituency. And at the high level, politicians just simply aren't interested in understanding the detailed challenges that we face as an industry. And then what you're branching out into is a wider discussion about the whole net zero agenda. As of things may be shifting, but as of today, the world is still committed to net zero. We have the Paris Agreement, and all governments have signed that agreement, and they are doing what they can to implement it. So the only reason ICS has been supporting this process is because we concluded, 10 years ago, actually, we had a long discussion, strategic discussion, and we concluded that carbon pricing for shipping is inevitable. So we either allow IMO to do it and mitigate it, or we leave it to the EU, and then we have the total mess of the EU ETS and Fuel EU Maritime. No one understands how these regulations work. And then we have, as I said, President Trump might not be there forever, and then we have the spectre of California introducing crazy carbon charges and potentially the Chinese too. So, and I apologise, I'm monopolising the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let us now hear from our distinguished speaker, Mr. Stanislav Matev, Operations Manager at Cargill, Varda. He will share the Decarbonization Report 2025 and provide insights on biofuels, operational and technical efficiencies, and the fuels of the future. Welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Maybe before I start, because it was a bit long and I see some people trying to go out, just to give a minute. It's fine. It's fine. Thank you. It's fine. Is it okay? I'll try to hold. First of all, again, one more time, thank you for the introduction, Anna. Hello, everyone. Truly a privilege to have the chance to present again to you after 2 years the progress we've made on our decarbonization journey and some of the lessons we've learned over time. In my agenda for today, we'll stop a bit on our latest report statistics. No worries. You're needed, man, huh? Captain Stoyanov. Welcome. Then a few more words on biofuels, as we consider that as the way for the near term, for the short and near term compliance. More on operational and technical efficiency measures we've taken, and of course, spend time on wind-assisted propulsion experience and future fuels view. First, about Cargill. As you all know, Cargill is a family company. We employ more than 155,000 people in 70 countries. We reach 125 markets with fuel, ingredients, industrial products, agricultural services. Of course, our objective is to nourish the world in a safe, sustainable, and responsible way. And ocean transportation as a business within Cargill is at the center of our supply chain. We have 70 years of experience of providing freight services to our customers from our 3 main commercial hubs, Geneva, Singapore, and Miami. Currently, we operate from 10 countries, and we employ 360 employees. Our volumes are fairly stable in the recent years, so we have 600, 650 vessels at any given time on the sea. These ships do perform around 3,500, 4,000 voyages year on year. We call 11,000 ports, and we carry around 200 million metric tons of cargoes. Main cargo flows, as you can see, remain grains, iron ore, coal, fertilizers, and sugar. Our time charter fleet is the backbone of our business. We vet independently through the RightShips framework and organization 100% of our voyages. And together with RightShips and under the Global Maritime Forum standards, we advocate ethically for improved safety standards and policies protecting seafarers' well-being. Also on that fleet, we are in the position to install, in a partnership with our owners and partners, ESD devices, work on a more transparent and accurate emissions reporting, hence obtain as well a regulatory compliance. We've embarked on our decarbonization strategy back in 2017. There are very important key milestones therein. Our decarbonization report is public, hence I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking you through all of these. You can obtain the decarbonization report through the link available on the barcode. I believe it's on the banners, at the bottom end of the banners. And our previous year's decarbonization reports are available therein as well. But all our efforts are revolving mostly around 4 pillars. Number A is forge industry-wide partnerships and alignment on how we report and how we capture and how we report emissions to ensure that there is an equal playing field. Number two is continuously and meticulously modernize our fleet to installing ESD devices. Please. No? Okay. No, okay. I thought that you want to go. So we continuously and meticulously modernize our fleet, installing ESD devices. Number three is around fostering and actively piloting cutting-edge technology, zero or near-zero technologies such as wind-assisted propulsion, and of course, ensure that we maintain our fleet in a good condition. This is the latest report statistics. So in 2024, we've achieved 3% year-on-year reduction versus 2023, or that represents around 12% improvement versus our 2017 baseline. To look at it from another angle, if we haven't done anything, we would have emitted 1.35 million metric tons of CO2 more versus then. However, and there are a lot of great stories behind that. I'm going to talk you through in a couple of slides later in more details, but we have to recognize that there is a gap. And it's not Cargill gap, it's a gap of the industry. So we, as well as our peers under the Sea Cargo Charter, recognize that we are 12% below the trajectory drawn by the Sea Cargo Charter for the emissions reductions if we want to reach to the net zero in 2050. Furthermore, that's about 18% from the aspirational goals that IMO has set. And we knew that that gap will exist, and it exists for the simple reason that decarbonization is costly, as it has been the discussion just before me. And not sure to what extent you're all aware, but Sea Cargo Charter was all about reporting and aligning on reporting and setting goals. The Sea Cargo Charter objective was not about creating the business climate for decarbonization. That was IMO's job. And this is what IMO did through the net zero agreement. So luckily, when I was asked to present, Captain Stoyanov asked me, please keep to 15 minutes. I said, okay, how I'm going to talk about what we do, about net zero framework, about biofuels. So I was super lucky that Simon was speaking before me. It's already established. Net zero framework is creating the new economical reality very soon after it's adopted. The net zero framework is creating the incentive for decarbonizations through the GFI standard to the GHG pricing mechanism. The targets for 2030 is 20% GHG emission reductions. And furthermore, there is an indication about incentives for accelerating uptake on net zero or near zero technologies. And we're going to talk about that a bit later when I spend more time on the wind-assisted propulsion. And as Simon explained, there are two lines of compliance, base, direct. There are different pricing mechanisms, $100 in one case, the direct, more aspiration one, that is cheaper, and $380 around the baseline of compliance. The good news today is that there is a way to comply without increasing at least this is how we think about that, without increasing our costs unnecessarily high. You all know that the B24, B30 biofuels are available today. They've been used for maritime ships for the last couple of years, and the demand of these has been increasing exponentially. So if you want to comply in the least and most effective way, that is go to B24, B30, depending from where you bunker that vessel. These come with 20-30% emission reductions on GHG basis, meaning that your vessel not only will be compliant, but for the first couple of years, the vessel will be able to generate already the surplus units, which can be allocated to the non-compliant ships. The biofuels, we consider these as drop-in fuels, requiring zero additional investments from the owners. These are available now at scale at more than 60 ports, and the compliance and certification is quite advanced. They're already recognized under EU ETS and FuelEU, so hopefully IMO will follow suit and will adopt the same model of compliance and certification, making our job a bit easier. Our own experience with biofuels has been extensive. We've been trialing these back in 2021. Since 2023, we go to market with the Cargill-produced waste oil farming products from the Ghent refinery The Ghent refinery is one of the biggest and most modern cargo investments in Europe in that sense. In the total fuel we've lifted in ARA, where we have our own infrastructure, and in Singapore, where we partner with Minerva, Cargill providing the bio component, and the Minerva are providing the petroleum product, have reached 100,000 metric tons for the year alone. And we predominantly supply third parties, repeated customers who come and ask us for more as much as when it's available. We have worked clearly on certification of these fuels so that they are recognized as under the Scope 3 emission reductions. And thanks to our partnership with DNV, we keep a CO2 ledger and are ready with our own carbon inset scheme as an additional value proposition for our customers. But of course, the pressure on new fuel will be high, and the cost of this at the current stage is not low. Hence, going through the full panel of vessel and voyage efficiencies is critical and important. When talking about our decarbonization progress, again, we were able to achieve this through consistently executing and applying all of these measures here. So we've been working with owners for a prolonged period of time of retrofit designs and installations of ESD devices. I think that at this stage we've been able to install ESDs on more than 100 ships, and our generative savings for CO2 are more than 100,000 metric tons. For last year alone, for 2024, we are reporting 30,000 metric tons of CO2 savings from such devices. We are introducing to our customers a new freight services under our parceling desk, where we are able to accommodate their cargoes on one large vessels. Hence, they have to execute less voyages, and their overall emissions are reported are less when reported. We proactively manage the hull and the propeller services, working with paint manufacturers for the latest hull anti-fouling systems and more expensive paints, and also are very careful not to damage these when cleaning with brushes or in the waterways. And all our time charter voyages, we plan and monitor through the Zero North optimization software. In the last 2 years, we've run about 10,000 unique voyage optimization in the start, but most importantly, we've done 10 times the re-optimization calculations during the course of the voyage. So we have 1,200 or 1,300 re-optimization calculations run, taking into consideration the dynamic market rates of hire and fuel at any given date, and as well apply obviously the arrival window, the weather, but applying these against a ship-specific, constantly self-improving fuel performance curve. And that all sounds great. Unfortunately, the quality of our optimization depends entirely on the quality of the data behind it. Bad data, I think it was mentioned in the first presentation, the bad data is an industry-wide problem, right? The new reports has not revolutionized much. Hence, we do as much as possible to work with our owners on improved transparency, on requirements about data alignment and data quality. At the same time, we've been working with BIMCO to draft, and now it's available, the new BIMCO 2025 data sharing clause. The center of that clause is to promote sensor data, tackling problems around who bear the cost of investments of such sensors, with what purpose the data of that sensors will be used. Hopefully, this will allow to get more traction of these sensors data, and we all can benefit from that collectively as an industry. We have already covered the things on the left side of the curve, those who has a low cost first, but also for which the business case for investing and implementing was there and then. It's here and now and will remain in the future. Clearly, if a vessel can be more efficient and consumes 10% less fuel, after January 1st, 2028, you have less things to worry about and the cost of compliance will be lesser. So these things will remain, they're important. And on my next slide, I'm going to talk a bit more about wind and future fuels. As we've said, on the net zero framework agreement and the MEPC 83 meeting, there were discussions around additional incentives to accelerate the uptake of wind-assisted propulsion or near zero or net zero technologies, and wind assisted propulsion technologies are exactly such. How this going to work? What the exact calculations and business case is going to look like? There are some uncertainties, but we've done our simulations looking at how full EU is treating the same topic. So what we think is that if today the return of such system is coming entirely from the savings the wind assisted propulsion is generating, and these are not small. We will see later on that we've reached almost 15% for our largest installation. But we think that our future model will look like 2/3 will come through the incentive schemes. And from that 30 billion funds, I didn't know that it's 30 billion, it's a nice figure. So 2/3 will be coming from there, and 1/3 will continue to be from the savings the systems generate. As a reminder, Cargill has at current stage 3 vessels, which a system. Wind Wings is the biggest one, that's Pixis Oceans, and I'll speak mostly about her. We have a vessel with anemoy rotors and vent-to-foil suction sails. So 3 vessels. The rotors and the suction sails are much smaller in size, hence their potential for savings is lesser. There were, in the initial discussions, a threshold for such systems that the vessel, at least 50% or more from the consumption should be saved through such means. Hence, we are focusing on Wind Wings going forward in our presentations. What we've seen after a year and more in operation is that a consistent savings of 3 metric tons per day. So we are extremely happy about that, as this is super close to the initial CFD modeling bar the designers did for that technology at the start. We were very lucky with a super engaged crew and master, very ambitious. If initially our wings uptime, which is another critical KPI of these two, has been 60%, a bit less than expectations, on the most recent voyages, we've moved up to 90% wings uptime. So the crew and the master, indeed, they were really committed to push the limits of that system. In a very favorable condition, we were able to achieve 10, 11 metric tons of savings per day. And it's a new technology, it's more complex. In order to make most of it, you need to plan the voyage much more carefully in a different way. So it depends at every given time what's the angle of the wind coming towards you so that you can maximize the savings. Additionally, that's an on-the-deck installed machinery. So we've seen for first time problems with the hydraulic machinery that are being addressed. Initial concern has been the adoption and acceptance of these vessels in ports. Hence, we put a lot of efforts. We talked to more than 250 terminals. We have a 200 terminals confirmation that these vessels would be accepted. And in the end, our ship has been collectively in more than 24 ports in the last year and a half without any issues. So we trust that the acceptance at terminal level will only improve over time. And I think that's most around wind. Future fuels. The green fuels or e-fuels, I can't talk much because that's really in the future. We are mostly looking at currently at methanol fuel, and that's biomethanol. So that's still not net zero or near zero fuel. The green methanol, we have 5 Kamsarmaxes in our order book. The first one is coming now in 2026. And separately, we've been working together with Voyage Register Minerva again on designing the new Kamsarmax design of the future. That's a modular design which allows for an ease in installation now or later of the methanol engine, the tanks, and also creating the right foundations for wind-assisted propulsion installations later on so that the whole cost will go down. And maybe you know, but Cargill merged our bunker procurement business together with Hafnia under the Seascales Energy, becoming the largest bunker providers in the world. And our objective under Seascales Energy joint venture is to scale up the infrastructures for the new biofuels, the farmed biodiesels, the second, third generation, and future ones. We have seen, I've said, that the scale of these fuel is improving very fast. This year alone, 2024, we've seen that the consumption is more than 2 million metric tons of this fuel. Last year, it has been 1 million. So every year is doubling up. The Cargill, 1 million of these flow is being provided in Ara and Singapore area. That's the two main hubs of biodiesel, and Cargill has 10% of that share with 10,000 metric tons there. And of course, a thoughtful and lasting change cannot happen but with the collaboration, without collaboration between people and organization. Hence, what we are mostly proud of is the scale and scope of partnership we've reached across the industry. So rather than risking to miss some important name here, I would like to close with that and happy to take any questions either now, later on during the meetings, and or I can revert if there are questions that I cannot answer today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because we're a little bit... How do you feel, dear guest? Do you need a little break or we can continue? I can't hear you. Little break. Okay, if you want, please welcome for a little coffee break and then we will come back. And all the questions that you have to Mr. Matev is right now, but please only 10 minutes in order to have the lunch at 12. Yeah? Thank you so much. See you in a 10. Okay, please let's start with our next guest speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce Associate Professor Jana Gancheva. Welcome, Jana.
Thank you. Dear distinguished guests and participants, I'm honored to present on sustainable maritime operations and green port technologies. The topic is addressed within the framework of the Green Port project, in which the Nicola Vaptsarov Naval Academy is also a partner. The topic is extremely relevant given the challenges faced by stakeholders in the maritime industry. Some of the key challenges in maritime port services include reducing emissions, promoting sustainability, developing green skills to comply with environmental regulations. From these challenges, the main objective of the Green Port project have been derived: developing innovative curricula, facilitating knowledge exchange between academia and industry, driving behavioral change through training, enhancing skills and competencies of port service personnel, encouraging innovation and collaboration among maritime stakeholders. The Green Port project brings together a diverse consortium of European-level trade associations, companies, higher education institutions, vocational training providers, and research organizations. The Green Port Alliances project is an Erasmus initiative that has been running from 2024 and will continue until 2027. The next slide presents the priority areas of the Green Port project, which include the Green Deal and climate neutrality, smart and sustainable mobility, skills development and education, innovation and research. The activities of the Green Port project are divided into 6 work packages. The first work package, project management and quality assurance, ensures effective project implementations according to proper project management principles. The second work package, needs analysis and commercial drivers, focuses on gathering and analyzing comprehensive data on the port services sector in Europe. The third work package, analysis on raw data for curriculum development, scientifically analyzes the data collected in Work Package 2, identifying best operational practices that balance industry needs and sustainability goals. The fourth Work Package, Development of Educational Material, develops the educational content and methodologies for 3 learning streams: higher education modules for students, a short vocational course for current personnel, and e-learning train-the-trainer course for educators. The fifth Work Package, Piloting, Evaluation, and Curriculum Impact Analysis, pilots the developed courses in universities, vocational training providers, and through e-learning. The sixth Work Package, Dissemination and Impact, leads the communication, dissemination, and exploitation activities. The Nikolai Tsarov Naval Academy is the lead partner of Work Package 4, responsible for developing curriculum, creating training materials, providing vocational education expertise, and collaborating with industry. The Naval Academy project team is focusing its efforts on 3 learning streams: higher education, vocational education and training, and train-the-trainer programs. As the maritime industry comes under increasing scrutiny for its environmental impact, higher education lecturers are emerging as key players in promoting sustainability among future professionals. Integrating sustainable practices into maritime education is essential, as it equips students with the knowledge and skills they need to succeed in their careers. Maritime educators should design and implement curricula that go beyond technical competencies, integrating sustainability principles to cultivate environmentally responsible professionals. The vocational education and training on sustainable maritime operations in green port technologies equips port services personnel with practical skills and knowledge for sustainability. It emphasizes skills development, hands-on training, industry relevance, customized programs, and continuous improvement, with a strong focus on practical application and career advancement. The effectiveness of training maritime educators in sustainability, particularly in port services, depends on their awareness of sustainability principles, motivation, and ability to integrate behavioral change methods into their courses. To enhance trainers' capability, comprehensive relevance materials, real-time case studies, and practical simulations are provided, supporting structured skill development and coherent knowledge transfer. Interactive learning activities and practical exercises are highly effective in promoting sustainable behavior among learners. Additionally, collaboration between academia and industry is crucial for effectively addressing real-world sustainability challenges. And in conclusion, training in sustainable maritime operations and green port technologies encourages maritime industry participants to take small but consistent actions that can lead to measurable changes in daily port operations. While these actions may seem minor at the individual level, their collective impact in ports directly contributes to achieving the decarbonization goals set by the European Union and the International Maritime Organization. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Gancheva. So, do you have any questions to Ms. Gancheva? No questions. Thank you. Thank you again. Hey. It is a privilege to give the floor to Associate Professor Nick Markov, head of the Bulgarian Ship Hydrodynamics Center. Welcome.
Thank you. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I manage a large hydrodynamics center in Varda. We operate industrial scale facilities like 2 towing tanks, deep water, shallow water towing tank, 200 by 16 meter, 1 seakeeping and maneuvering basin, 60 by 40 meter, with wave makers and cavitation tunnel. We also have computer cluster for CFD calculations. So, as a representative of Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, this presentation will be a bit more technical, and I'll try not to be boring. So here I'm presenting a project, a Horizon Europe project that we completed a couple months ago. And it's dedicated to propellers made of composite materials. So what we do here is we try to optimize the design, the manufacture, and we compare the performance of the composite propellers and the metal propellers. Do I do it? So this is the presentation agenda. And this slide shows the consortium that executed the project. So we have companies and research organizations from Greece, from France, from UK, and Bulgaria. So we have University Ioannina from Greece, Danal Shipping, they operate container ship, you probably know. Bureau Veritas and Bureau Veritas Solutions from Nantes. Also, the technical coordinator was Loritech, the composite factory in Nantes. And they work a lot with Airbus. And this is our Institute of Metal Sciences, where we belong, the Hydrodynamics Center. Glavkos is Greek company. Airflow, Bureau Veritas, and associated partners are the Welding Institute in Cambridge, UK, and Brunel University, London. So you can see them on the map. So our aim was to bring benefits to the maritime industry, including reduced operating costs and environmental impact. And so currently, we know metal propellers are much heavier than the composite propellers, so definitely improvement in weight, which makes them easier to replace. Moreover, the composite propellers, we made them with separate, you can dismantle the blades, so each blade can be replaced by a diver. Also, what other benefits? Lower vibration, lightweight, high performance. We're looking for energy savings due to the deflection of the blades under load. High strength, reduced cavitation, again, due to the compliance with the blade, the deflection of composite blades under load. So what we did during the project, we designed composite propeller to achieve optimum propulsive efficiency. How we did it? We took a designed metal propeller and we matched the geometry of the metal propeller or the design load with the composite propeller, and we looked for different loads, how the composite propeller compares to the metal propeller. So we did it in model scale. So the top one is a model scale propeller that we tested in Varna. And the bottom one is the full-scale propeller that we tested in France. So in Varna, we did it in controlled environments, in towing tanks, cavitation tunnel. In France, it was in a real operational environment. And first, design. So here, this slide presents how we designed it. It's a short summary how it was designed. So it's an iterative process. It's coupled analysis, structural and hydrodynamic analysis. Pretty much you run CFD to see what the pressure distribution on the blade is, and then with this pressure distribution, we run structural analysis to see how the blade deflects under this pressure. And after the deflection, we go back to hydrodynamics to see how the pressure changed with the deflected blade, and then we go back to the structural to see, and back and forth after 5 or 6 iterations, everything converges, so we know what under the load the final blade deflection will look like. And we try to optimize this blade deflection so we can get better efficiency. How we optimize it? It is composite, so you can align the fibers, the direction of the fibers, so you can have a proper deflection under the load. And this slide outlines a manufacturing process. Also, this another advantage of the propeller, it was instrumented. So we had fiberglass, fiber optic cables inside to measure actually how the blades respond under load. So we're measuring the strain during the operation. So what we did, consortium developed deeper understanding of the hydrodynamic performance of marine propellers to design net-shaped composite parts with sensors to enable predictive and on-demand maintenance. We created prototype propellers in model scale and full scale to demonstrate the maturity of technology and including the ability to adapt on existing vessels. The project team seeked routes to market while protecting the intellectual property of the participants. So here are the steps. First step, we had material characterization. It was mostly done in Cambridge by the Welding Institute. And then we had small-scale demonstrator, mostly in Varna and in Cambridge, because Cambridge, they did the dry tests, like load tests on the blades. They did non-destructive examination of the blades. They did vibration tests on the blades. And in Varna, we did the hydrodynamics, so performance in water. And then we had a full-scale demonstrator on the top, sea trials. And these are the technology readiness levels for each of these stages. So here we're showing the design, some of the design process. This is the CFD simulation of the rotating propeller, and the pressure distribution is given on top. And here you can see this line is what the metal propeller, how it deflects for different loads. This line is how the composite propeller would deflect if it was not optimized. And this is how the composite propeller blade deflects after the optimization. So we pretty much changed with optimization, we changed the deflection with 8%. So actually this is the zero line. So above the zero line, it means it performs worse. Below the zero line, it means it has better efficiency. So by proper aligning of the fiber direction, the Meca is a French design company. They managed to optimize the blade. So instead of blade deflecting this way, it was deflecting actually the other way. Not cooperating. And this shows parts that were used during the manufacturing in Nantes by Loritech. So the top photos are for the model scale propeller, and the bottom photos are for the full scale propeller. So we have custom-made fabric shaping tools for both propellers, then the injection tooling, Silex C for the model scale, and RTM injection from aluminum for the full-scale propeller. And this is how the model scale and the full scale looked after manufacturing. In Varna, since we had to compare this to the metal propellers, in Varna we manufactured 2 metal propellers and a model of pusher boats that exists in Danube River. So these are exact replicas for the models made in Varna. These are the tests that Cambridge TWI did in Cambridge, the static load tests, and they loaded until it broke, and then they did ND tests and X-ray tests to see how the internal blade structure was, if it had defects or no. And then vibration tests were performed in Nantes, France. And this plot shows that the nature of requests for 4 blades that we actually used were very similar, which means we had similar weight for the blades. And this shows the tests, the model tests in Varna. This is the top one is the shallow water towing tank. And we told the model we measure the flow actually behind the ship here and the resistance. Why we measure the flow? Because then we model it in a cavitation tunnel. And here you can see a cavitation of the bronze model and a cavitation of the composite model. And here you see the sea trials near Gras Island, I think, pronunciation, in France. We did it with a ship. First we did it with bronze and a composite propeller. The diameters are 1.1 meter each one. And then we did it with 2 bronze propellers. And this was the ship, the La Paix boat, I think. This slide shows how the instrumentation of propeller works. So this is what the fiber optic cables, the signal from the fiber optic cables for different. So the fiber optic cable is built inside the composite blade, like this. So this shows how the strain is distributed along the fiber optic cable for different loading conditions. So pretty much we kept the RPM the same, and we were varying the flow speed. And it was recorded through a rotating joint. So you can see on the top photo that the fiber optic cable comes through a rotating joint, and we read it. The slide also shows comparison between the cavitation performance in controlled environment, and the top one is cavitation in real environment. So the cavitation tests and the sea trials, the cavitation was not very well explored. Why? We had problems in both cases. In model scale, it turned out that it's very difficult to manufacture composite model in model scale because the edges are so thin that to match the accuracy that's required, it's 0.03 millimeters, it's very hard from composite. It's easy from metal, relatively easy, but not from composite. And it was affecting the performance of composite propeller because the blade edges were not exactly the same for the 4 blades, while they're perfectly identical for the metal. In full scale, we had problem. Why? Because La Paix boat, during the test, it was in ballast condition, not loaded condition, so we had some air ventilation. So air was going in and it was obstructing the picture recorded. And this is efficiency plots in model scale and full scale. What we see here, this is the design point So you can think of it J number, which is speed, flow speed. This is the design point. So on the green side, it performs better. The composite performs better than the metal. On the red side, the metal performs better than the composite. But the green sign is important because this is the design speed, and these are lower speeds than the design speed where the load is higher. So for higher load, so here metal and composite, the geometry is the same. It's designed to be the same. For higher loads, the composite propeller deflects more and is more efficient, up to 2% according to this project. And similar trend was shown for C-trials. And this is a hydroacoustic comparison. So we compare metal and composite noise from metal and composite propellers. So this is for the low frequencies, red zone, and for higher frequencies, the green zone. So for higher frequencies, the composite propeller was performing better, had lower noise than the metal propeller. In the red zone, the metal propeller was quieter, and we believe because this happened because, as I mentioned, the composite propeller blades were not exactly identical. The edges were not exactly identical, so we had some vibrations from the fact that the four blades are not identical. And you could see the peaks here were in the resonance frequencies of the blades. But anyway, for noise, really, this part is more important, high frequencies, because most of the propeller noise comes from cavitation, and cavitation actually creates noise in the higher frequencies. And this is I'm almost finished. This is what we're planning to do in the future. Try to design and manufacture a larger propeller, more than 3 meter, larger than 3 meter, because our project showed that the larger the propeller is, the easier it is to manufacture it, and the easier it's to design it for the blades to deflect more. Confirm efficiency, fuel, noise reduction, confirm manufacturing for larger blades. And again, we plan testing and manufacturing process control and repair. Thank you.
Mr. Markov. So we're forwarding the questions for the lunchtime. Excuse me, it's just we're going to be late. Last questions. Sorry, after that, please. Last but not least, we are going to see a joint presentation. It will be short presentation, and after that we are going to have the big break. So please welcome Miss Dimitrena Topalova from Unity Ship Management Ltd. together with Mr. Grigor Konchev, Director of IT and Communication. It says here joint. I'm reading.
She starts.
Okay, please.
Hi, everybody. Well, I'm here to surprise you. I'm not Nikolai Petkov, who you were expecting today. His day has taken an unexpected pivot, so they sent me. I'm really pleased to be today at the Global Compass. It is not only my first time, but it's also the first time for Unity Ship Management. And I'll be happy to share the story of how our young company like ours, has made remarkable toddler steps in the maritime industry. 3 years, 20 ships, innovation-first approach. This encapsulates who we are and what we stand for. A company young in years, but ambitious and agile in approach, dedicated to reshaping ship management through leading-edge technology and laser-focused decisions. USM has been founded in 2022 here in Varna as the technical and operational backbone of Unity Maritime's fleet. In only 3 short years, we have transformed from a startup into a globally recognized ship management company. This transformation didn't happen by chance. It's the result of clear vision, innovative mindset, homegrown maritime professionals, and a commitment to rapid development that has set us apart in an established industry. With headquarters in London and strategic operations here in Varna, this has gave us global reach with regional strength. Today we manage between 16 and 20 ships at any given time, a fleet surpassing 1 million deadweight tons, composed only of premium Japanese and Korean-built eco-friendly ships. Our fleet's average age is under 9 years, which is making it one of the youngest and most efficient in the sector. All of this is underpinned by certification in quality, occupational health and safety, and environment. Our fleet and chartering partners determine our growth trajectory. Over 3 years, we have expanded rapidly, with a focus on eco-gear tonnage strategically built for efficiency and performance. With generational contributions in global shipping, Unity Maritime is our parent company, a private investment group focused in land and sea. The shipping arm, which USM runs technically and operationally, is well known for its top-tier asset base and commitment to best-in-class management. This synergy empowers us to continuously push boundaries and maintain a competitive edge in the dry bulk market. What truly drives us at Unity Ship Management is our philosophy. Every decision we make passes through 3 critical pillars. It must benefit the fleet to operate in an optimized way. It must benefit employees by fostering innovation and supportive culture. And it must benefit the mariners by prioritizing their welfare, health, and safety. This focused approach has already yielded impressive results: 21% year-on-year growth in transported cargo, key business partnerships, and a reputation for reliability and innovation. This vision is brought to life every day through the dedicated work of our IT and communications team. The very people who design, maintain, and support the cutting-edge systems that keep our ships connected, safe, and efficient. So please join me in welcoming Grigor Kanchev.
Thank you, Didi. Hi, everyone. My name is Grigor Kanchev, and I am the IT and Communications Manager at Unity. And I would like to talk to you about a couple of things that really give us the proper tools to boost efficiency, both on board and in our office. We aim to be proactive rather than reactive, which requires us to constantly learn and adapt and, of course, test new technologies. Recently, we started incorporating shipping fleet vision systems on board our ships with 3 vessels currently live, and we aim to gradually cover all the vessels under our management. It's a system that consists of high-end video surveillance technology, AI analysis of the footage while it is still on board, and generating meaningful reports and alerts for us at the office and for the captain. Basically, it's like another set of eyes for the captain. There is an alarm panel, which is in a convenient place, and they can see the same reports and alerts that we see in the dashboard in our office. We can see events which may endanger ship safety, which we can also cross-reference reports from the system and make sure that certain actions were performed correctly or even performed at all. We can see a live feed from each camera on board and make informed decisions based on weather, or like surroundings of the vessel, condition of specific equipment, etc. But none of this, of course, can happen without a high-speed, reliable internet. And this is where we place our trust in Starlink. We are one of the first companies globally to put to put Starlink on all the ships as main communication system, and we're backing it up with VSAT and 4G for the few areas still where Starlink is not available. It's truly an amazing technology, which really frees our hands to do things on board like they are in the room next door. And crew also very happy about it. 200 megabits of internet connection. My internet at home is 100 megabits, so it's quite a comparison. And they keep closer than ever to their family and friends back at home. Things like video calls, watching Netflix, YouTube, it's completely normal on board our ships. We raised the bar even more and performed a 2-hour video training session with more than 80 people at the same time on our ships. All top 4 officers were trained at the same time in a video conference, and it was something remarkable to see. 120 officers were trained over the course of 3 days, but 80 at the first day. And then comes the challenge. How do you control such a powerful system? With the increase of the internet speed, cybersecurity is a concern, and we take cybersecurity very seriously. And this is why we need a very robust and reliable IT data infrastructure on board. And we do. But you never really feel confident enough until every aspect of it is in your hands. And this is why we decided to build our own custom data center solution and install it on our newest vessel, Unity Triton. It really gives us full control on every aspect of the IT and some of the OT on board, like local computers, virtual servers, firewalls, data analysis, sensors. Everything is in our hands right now. And gives us all the information that we need to identify an issue, to be proactive, to assist our crew the best way we can, while at the same time we reduce operational costs by 50%. After all, this is the point of all of our efforts, to make our ships safer and more efficient and our crew members happier. Thank you.